Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Matt sent me a note. Said, Steve, check out the story from the Department of Justice. And I remember this story when it happened because when this guy was arrested and they searched his house, they found something of great value inside a Cheetos popcorn tin. And the popcorn tin made all the news stories. So Silk Road dark web fraud defendant sentenced following seizure and forfeiture of over $3.4 billion in cryptocurrency. According to the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, the man was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in prison for committing wire fraud back in 2012 when he unlawfully obtained approximately 50,000 Bitcoin from the Silk Road dark web internet marketplace. Remember that? I remember when they busted the guy that they said was running it. That was a big deal also. But 50,000 Bitcoin, that actually would add up to quite a bit of money. In fact, as part of the investigation, the government got final orders of forfeiture for, among other items, the 51,680 Bitcoin, valued at about $3.4 billion at the time of the seizure, but now about $1.5 billion because Bitcoin tends to fluctuate. U.S. Attorney said back in 2012 the man committed wire fraud by stealing 50,000 Bitcoin from Silk Road, and for the next 10 years, he managed to conceal what he had done and how he had gotten his fortune. He used a decentralized Bitcoin mixer, which I'm pretty sure we all use now, an overseas cryptocurrency exchange, and an array of technological tools to frustrate tracing efforts. But thanks to the relentless and skillful efforts of law enforcement in following the money, the federal government uncovered a scheme and obtained final orders of forfeiture for over 51,000 Bitcoin. Cyber criminals should heed this message. We will follow the money, or the Bitcoin, and hold you accountable, no matter how sophisticated your scheme and no matter how long it takes. So it's kind of complicated. But of course, we all know that Bitcoin is untraceable, right? Isn't that one of its advantages? One of its selling points? Well, it turns out maybe not. Silk Road, of course, was the online darknet black market, which was in operation in 2011, 12, and 13. It was used by numerous people, including drug dealers and other unlawful vendors, to distribute all kinds of stuff, illicit goods and services, to buyers and to launder funds passing through it. In 2015, following a groundbreaking prosecution by this office, when you get to write your own press releases, you can say things like that. The founder of Silk Road was convicted by unanimous jury and sentenced to life in prison. Life in prison. So in 2012, this man executed a scheme to defraud Silk Road of its money and property by several things, creating a string of approximately 9 Silk Road accounts in a manner designed to conceal his identity. Then he triggered over 140 transactions in rapid succession in order to trick Silk Road's withdrawal processing system into releasing approximately 50,000 Bitcoin from its Bitcoin-based payment system into this man's account and then transferring that Bitcoin into a variety of separate addresses also under this man's control, all in a manner designed to prevent detection. And he was hoping to conceal his identity and his ownership and obfuscate the Bitcoin's source. While executing that fraud, he did not list any item or service for sale, nor did he buy any items or services. He simply registered the accounts by providing the bare minimum information required by Silk Road to create the account. The fraud accounts were merely a conduit for him to defraud Silk Road of Bitcoin. So just so you're keeping this straight, there was this enterprise called Silk Road. The feds shut it down and then put its operator, who they believe the operator was, in prison for life. Now they're saying that we've convicted somebody who ripped off that operation, and we've got the money they ripped off from it. So the man funded the fraud accounts with an initial deposit of between 200 and 2,000 Bitcoin. After the initial deposit, he then quickly executed a series of withdrawals. Through his scheme to defraud, he was able to withdraw many times more Bitcoin out of Silk Road than he had deposited in the first instance. So apparently he discovered a vulnerability in the system. And that was that it was easy to get withdrawals of Bitcoin if you claimed it was some sort of fraud. And apparently you could send in a whole bunch of fraud requests and it would pay you back quickly. So as an example, In September of 2012, he deposited 500 Bitcoin into a Silk Road wallet, and then less than 5 seconds after making the initial deposit, he executed 5 withdrawals within the same second, resulting in a net gain of 2,000 Bitcoin. As another example, a different fraud account made by a single deposit and over 50 Bitcoin withdrawals before the account ceased its activity. He moved this Bitcoin out of Silk Road and in a matter of days consolidated them into 2 high-volume amounts. And so as you can imagine, the guy who's running Bitcoin cannot call the feds and go, hey, somebody's ripping me off. Can you get over here and help me? And of course, that's one of the things that would make you a target if you're running a criminal enterprise, is that if somebody comes and steals from you, who are you going to call? So nearly 5 years after that fraud, in August of 2017, in a hard fork coin split, don't you just hate when that happens? Bitcoin split into 2 cryptocurrencies, traditional Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. When the split occurred, any Bitcoin address that had a Bitcoin balance, as this man's did, now had the exact same balance on both the Bitcoin blockchain and on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. As of August 2017, he thus possessed 50,000 BCH in addition to the 50,000 Bitcoin that he'd unlawfully obtained from Silk Road. He thereafter exchanged through an overseas cryptocurrency exchange all of the BCH crime proceeds for additional Bitcoin, amounting to approximately 3,500 Bitcoin of additional crime proceeds, and then collectively he wound up with 53,000 Bitcoin. And of course, it gets complicated. There's a lot of math here and big numbers. But beginning in or around March of 2022, the man began voluntarily surrendering to the government additional Bitcoin that he had access to and had not dissipated. In total, he voluntarily surrendered another 1,000 additional Bitcoin. So using a conservative estimate of the lowest spot price of Bitcoin on the seizure dates, the total value of all Bitcoin seized was approximately $3.4 billion. So what happened was on November 9th of 2021, there was a judicially authorized premises search warrant, and law enforcement agents recovered approximately 50,000 Bitcoin of crime proceeds from the man's Gainesville, Georgia house. Law enforcement located these crime proceeds in an underground floor safe and on a single board computer that was submerged under blankets in a popcorn tin stored in a bathroom closet. In addition, law enforcement recovered $661,000 in cash. So they forfeited all that money, and the man was charged, and he pled guilty to 1 count of wire fraud. So it turns out now that he's going to get 1 year and a day in jail as a result of all of this. But of course, like I said, the highlight of the story was that Cheetos popcorn tin in which they found a lot of this stuff. Prosecution of the case was overseen by the office's Money Laundering and Transnational Criminal Enterprise Unit. And I'm curious about the amount of Bitcoin and what the government's going to do with it. Because it says that when they seized it, it was worth $3.4 billion US. And they say today it's got a value of about 1.57. So it's lost half its value. And the question is, has the U.S. government cashed it yet? Or are they going to hang on to it? Or what are they going to do with it? Because, of course, it could fluctuate all over again. Could go up, could go down. That's what these things do. But you'll probably recall the story, if you followed any of this, about the guy who they accused of running the Silk Road enterprise. And it was a website where you can go and buy all kinds of stuff or sell all kinds of stuff. And the feds did a whole bunch of work tracking down who they thought it was. And they busted the guy, I believe, at a public library in California, where he was allegedly using the public Wi-Fi to log on and do his business. And I don't mean the business that your dog does on the front lawn. I'm saying the business that you do when you have a Silk Road operation. But that was a while back, and so they shut that down. And that's one of those places that, when it gets shut down, if you go there now, I think it probably has a U.S. government thing that says, this website's been seized. It's been a while since I looked at that one. But when they shut that down, I thought, well, that's the end of that. Obviously, somebody can come by and start another one. I'm sure there's been more of them started since then. And my point was that I thought that was the end of hearing about Silk Road. And it turns out that while Silk Road is operating, some guy did manage to steal from Silk Road 51,000 Bitcoin because he'd found that vulnerability in it where you could claim you'd been defrauded and file these claims for refunds and get back much more than you ever even had in the system. So obviously there's a problem there. Ironically, the guys running Silk Road needed better, programs to protect them against bad actors. So there you go. But it's a crazy story. Like I said, this was the one that involved the Cheetos popcorn tin. And at one point in time, this guy was sitting on Bitcoin worth about $3.4 billion. And the big question I have at that point is, and why are you still in the U.S.? With that kind of money, you can buy yourself an island someplace far away and just disappear. But instead, he's hanging out in Georgia. And so when they bust in there with a search warrant and they open up the Cheetos popcorn tin, they find the 51,000 Bitcoin. So crazy story from the Department of Justice. Matt, thanks for sending it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Just so everyone's clear, I'm going to put my glasses on.